last few weeks, I've been saying to you that these stories about Elijah are kind of like a cosmic boxing match between that storm god named Baal and the great God of Israel. And our text this morning represents the final challenge in that match. So Elaine read the beginning and the end of the story, but I'm wondering if you know about the middle. Are you familiar with this story? Great story. If you don't know it, I'm going to tell it to you. If you know it, I'm going to tell it to you. It goes like this. Elijah the prophet told Ahab the king to gather up all the people of Israel and all the prophets of Baal and have them meet him on Mount Carmel. So Ahab gathered up all the people of Israel and he gathered up all the prophets of Baal, and they went to meet Elijah on the mountain. And when the Israelites were assembled there, Elijah confronted them about their half-hearted devotion towards God. He said, "How long will you waver between two opinions?" Another translation says, "How long will you go limping with two different opinions?" I really like that imagery because you see, this is not a people who stood straight and walked strong in a very decisive manner. This is a people who limped. This is a people who hobbled along in their commitment. Sometimes they served the Lord, and sometimes they served Baal. So Elijah said to them, "Pick a god, Israel. If the Lord is God, then follow him. And if Baal is God, then follow him." But the Israelites weren't convinced, you see, that they really needed to make a decision in the matter. So to counter their indecision, Elijah proposed a contest. He told the prophets of Baal to select a bull for a burnt offering, and then to cut that bull into pieces and put it on a pile of wood ready to be burned, but they weren't to ignite the fire. And Elijah would do the same thing. He would prepare a bull, he would put it on a pile of wood, but he would not yet ignite the fire. And when these two sacrifices were ready, the prophets of Baal would call on their God, and Elijah would call on his, and the God who lit a fire under the sacrifice, that was the true God. Well, when Elijah told the people about the rules for this great contest, they all said, "Oh, yeah, this is good. This is good. Let's do that." So the prophets of Baal prepared their sacrifice, put it on a pile of wood, and all morning long, they asked Baal to set that wood on fire. They shouted, "Oh, Baal, answer us!" Nothing happened. They did a ritual dance around the altar to get Baal's attention. Nothing happened. Nobody answered. At noon, Elijah started making fun of Baal's prophets. "Just shout a little louder," he said. "Your God is probably meditating and he doesn't hear you. Or maybe he's busy right now. Maybe he's on vacation. Maybe your God is taking a nap, and if you'll just shout a little louder, you can wake him up." So the prophets of Baal shouted a little louder. No answer. they started to slash their skin so that the blood would run. And maybe they could entice Baal by the scent of their flowing blood. Nothing happened. There was no response at all. So it was Elijah's turn to call on the Lord. And he got 12 stones, one for each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And he began to build an altar. Actually, he began to repair an altar that was already there on Mount Carmel. He repaired that altar. And he dug a trench all the way around that altar that he built. And then he put wood on top of it. And he selected his bull, and he cut his bull into pieces, and he put that bull on top of the wood. And then Elijah did a very curious thing. He had 4 large jars of water poured on the sacrifice and on the wood that was underneath it. And he had it done again the same way. And then again, the third time, he took 4 large jars of water and had it poured over the offering and over the wood until that water ran down the altar and it filled the trench. You know, Baal is the Lord of water, right? Right. That's what his prophets say. Because, you know, Baal is the storm god. He makes it rain, so water is his element. And Elijah drowned his offering in Baal's element until that sacrifice was so wet that nobody could set it on fire. And it was only then that he called on his God. "Oh Lord," he said, "God of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and I've done all of these things that you have commanded me. Answer me," Elijah prayed. "Answer me so that these people will know that you are God, and they will turn their hearts back to you." And as he was praying, fire fell from the Lord, and it burned up that water-drenched offering, and it burned up that soaked wood underneath the offering, and then it burned up the stones that Elijah used to build the altar, and it burned up the ground, the dirt underneath the stones, and then it licked up all of that water that belonged to Baal. And when the people of Israel saw the consuming fire of God, they fell down on the ground in reverence and in worship. And they began to cry, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God." Elijah said, "Pick a God, Israel. Pick a God worthy of your devotion." And then he showed them just how worthy the Lord is of devotion. The final challenge then in this cosmic boxing match that we've been talking about, it isn't really between Baal and God. The battle is not between them at all. The final challenge is the one that Elijah issued to the Israelites. He asked them, "Whom will you serve?" And then he revealed God to them as they had never seen God before. And what a revelation it was. Even as Elijah was building that altar, even as he laid the wood out on the altar and placed the offering on top of it, and especially as he began to douse it time and time again with water, no one expected, right? No one expected God to reveal God's self in that awesome and awe-inspiring way. I'm pretty sure this story begs a question of us. Are we people limping with two opinions? You know, Jesus enters our world issuing that same challenge that Elijah issued to the Israelites. He says, pick a god. Whether it is money or power or addiction or ego or the Lord Most High, pick a god worthy of your devotion. And then through his life of love and of grace, by the healing that he did, by the oppression that he lifted, through the teachings that he offered, and through the death that he died, Jesus showed us just how very worthy the Lord Most High is. As the Apostle Paul wrote, Christ is the image of the invisible God. Jesus revealed God to humanity in a way that we had never seen God before. And what a revelation it was. Even as Judas betrayed him and his disciples abandoned him, even as he was tried and falsely accused, and especially even as he was nailed to the cross, no one expected God to reveal God's self in that very humble and humbling way. And yet, there God was. For Israel, the altar that Elijah built was a sign of God's presence right there among them, drawing them ever closer to God through the mighty acts of God's prophets. For the church, this meager meal laid on our altar, this is the sign of God's presence with us, drawing us ever closer to God through the mighty acts of Jesus Christ. And so it is that when we come to this table, we will hear once again that challenge. Pick a God. Pick a God, church. Whom will you serve? And in the bread and in the cup, we come to know a God worthy of our devotion. The self-surrendering God who is poured out in order to serve us. We come then to this table in reverence and in worship as we we proclaim together, the Lord is